Thank you for watching this series aiming at preparing for the paradigm shift and mindset transitioning, redefining the philosophical meaning of society and establishing natural law as a model to overcome the prevailing world dystopia.
Money is the obstacle to all progress. It does nothing for society. It is the absolute tool of control by those that control the issue and the printing of money. That's why when I say they own the world, they do. They literally, physically own the world in each of one of our asses. It prevents the natural flow of free energy. And that is very important to this weekend's activities here. Money prevents the natural flow of free energy. So I beg you, everyone present here, remember, it's about free energy, not I'm going to make $1 billion out of this energy. Give it away for free. It'll come back to you in ways you cannot imagine.
The once so-called Rich West is beginning to show cracks all over the place, and it is only a matter of time before it all crumbles down. There is no difference between the capitalist and socialist models in the end. Both have achieved despair for the masses and ultimately threats to the system. The law of commerce, as drafted and implemented, have deep flaws. Anybody with a good sense of observation is able to figure out that trying to fix any issue will precipitate a global financial crisis and possibly collapse. Many Westerners have no cushions anymore to absorb any shock to the system and must rely on central banks to print themselves into more debt now. One cannot make an omelette without breaking eggs, and the same applies to almost we can think of. Money was meant to be a medium of exchange that cannot be hoarded, so humans could remain in sync with the generosity of nature. But if nobody can take over, do we really need money? There lies the core issue explained in depth on our website. This is not an economic issue, but a metaphysical, spiritual one. Darwinism for humans will never work out, because man was given the dominion over nature to precisely have the choice to avoid predatory behaviors, or failing his purpose completely. We live in a free will universe after all. Man's ego is the problem when not understanding natural law.
It's not the love of money. Many people ask, oh, it's just the love of money. Money, there's nothing wrong with money, man. It's just a form of exchange. You know, we're so poisoned that we try and argue for it. We try and defend it. That's how poisoned our minds have become. It's incredible. It's not the love of money. It's the mere presence of money that causes all these problems. If you take money out of the system, all this stuff suddenly and miraculously vanishes. So what is the solution? If it's the mere presence of money or the love of money, of all of the above, what are we going to do to solve the problem? The answer is so blatantly obvious.
How much do we want to lose to fix society? Anybody who even thinks that he or she can muddle through is in fact helping perpetuate a paradigm that no longer serves, because it is a mindset issue. There are still too many out there expecting to profit from the system before it all crashes down, and those are part of the problem as they help the latter being stretched further to an inevitable breaking point. It is all an illusion, but extremely harmful, that only a tamed ego can fix. In other words, humility and empathy. However, any for-profit system will turn any ideology into the same endeavor, failure. It is the ego that has been trained since a very early age to regard money and debt as a necessary evil. Only the ego, thus, will get us out of it by recognizing that only a state of servitude can tolerate a necessary evil.
What do we need it for? It's causing all the strife in our lives. It's destroying our planet. The mines are raping our Mother Earth, taking out the precious guts out of our Gaia and distributing it around the world to people that claim they own it. It's sick.
Yes, this is sick, very sick, and here is why. Many people do not understand yet or remain stubbornly oblivious to the debt inflation inner workings, because they have always seen that after a bust, a boom is to be expected. But every boom paves the way for another bust. What gives? How about avoiding to create bubbles in the first place? Because after all, only insiders and their connections really profit from the boom and bust cycles. They know when to get in and out. The hardship is for 85% of population. A bubble-free economy, and this with no boom and bust cycles, would lead to a zero economic sum game, with no losers and no winners, because people would then cooperate a lot more instead of senselessly competing at their own expenses. Passion about what one does would then be seen as the only real currency. And all the passion together would complete one another to the point that the needs for money would gradually vanish. But first, monetary competition does not and never will work for human beings. Wealth cannot be created nor destroyed, but merely changes hands.
There are 5 mantras, 5 key points to the Ubuntu society. And it's not barter or trade. Everybody often jumps, a lot of people jumps to the conclusion, think, oh, let's go back to barter. No. He who has more to barter or trade will eventually rule the roost. So you can't go to that system. If you have nothing to trade, what are you going to say? Well, I got nothing to trade, so I'll have to, kiss your butt. No. So the Ubuntu contribution mantra is the 5 points. No money, no barter, no trade, no value attached to anything greater or lesser than anything else. Because why? Each one of our contributions should be and is equally valuable. If you start telling, well, I'm a doctor, my time is more valuable than yours, you're barking up the wrong tree, brother. Okay. So, and the final one, where everyone contributes for the greater benefit of all in the community, because that is how you get rewarded. You get rewarded by the recognition of the people in your community. Isn't that the highest reward everybody wants and is trying to buy with money, is recognition and respect of others? In essence, ultimately, that's what most people really want, is just to be loved and recognized for what they've done. And they think they can use money to do that. And then when they make a lot of money, they get zillions in the bank, then they suddenly realize, oh, well, nobody loves me anymore. They all want to take my money. So let me spend my money and then people will love me. And that's generally what happens when they start paying for things and people love them more, when they start giving it away.
First, one needs to look at the mechanism by which a monopoly comes into existence. Without that very observation, it is not even thinkable to change what is. Masses quickly speak about greed when referring to the corporate monsters ruling the planet. But what is greed exactly? Is it only bad when one has a lot of money? Or is it only okay to self-restrain, save, always look up for the best deals, financially wise, when one is from the low or middle class? That the rich should not pay attention to the way money is spent? When brainstorming these aspects, we quickly realize that almost everybody is greedy. That is where things begin to make sense a little bit more. Now that the greed factor has been established, we ought to look at society as the greedy pyramid, every level of greed benefiting from its inferior levels and so on. And this means, of course, that greed at the very top merely channels and funnels all the greed accumulated from the deep bottom and all the way up. This is truly how the system works. Humanity is a body. Every time we allow a limb to get infected, it comes back to haunt us. Being a prepper does not guarantee anything anymore if lacking empathy as we are moving towards the ineluctable crossroad and the ensuing global reset in terms of social and monetary values.
A world without money. There's no crime, no envy, no gluttony, no greed, no hoarding, no hierarchy. And the whole Ubuntu movement and the Ubuntu party has no hierarchy. Communities look after themselves. We have no central government. We don't have any central assholes trying to tell you how you should be running your life. No obstacles to any kind of progress because the solutions are simple and there are many bright minds here. We all know what the solutions are, what should be done to solve the problems, and somehow our politicians just can't get it right.
In this sense, blaming corporations for our miseries and planetary states of affairs cannot help us resolve the core dilemma. They are us and we are them. That is a terrible and very upsetting revelation, but this conclusion is embedded in the fabric of the universe as the holographic principle, or principle of correspondence. That processes taking place on lower levels also occur on higher planes. There is nothing humans can do about it, but just be aware of it. A future presentation will address the principles more deeply. Every time we see too much coercion around us, we should look into ourselves first for the dissonance within. The act of creation is the most daunting motion, as it also constantly demands to let go the old, stretches and collapse paradigms while ever widening the meaning of reality. The problem is that education teaches the exact opposite by imposing norms. Any new element invading the daily routine is met with such a challenge that many prefer to rely on whatever organization to do the thinking for them. When the act of creation serves the act of killing and monetary speculation, there is only one aftermath possible, as the dynamics is exponential and which can only translate into devastating shocks to the system. The nature of the act of creation is benevolent, and there cannot be any benevolence in any profit-driven system, because such a system is designed for the fittest. The widespread mindset of chasing profit and the so-called best deals, greed, is at the core of the world's afflictions and upheavals.
Because only out of unity comes infinite diversity and abundance. Only out of unity. Anything else is a futile exercise that will bring us back to the same point at some future point in time. So I'm going to end here because this is the end. Join the Ubuntu Liberation Movement. It's not just a South African entity. We've had various people around the world say to us, can we start the same thing in wherever? Yes. Go online, start the same thing. Use all the material I've published, put it out there, share it with everybody, and become part of this transitional phase.
The Earth Custodians movement merely strikes at the core. There is nothing to lose, really. Free will comes with personal responsibility, and there is no personal responsibility without staring at the precipice and taking action. And yes, free will does exist, but within the law. We all have the free will to notice or not that nature, immutable law, just works the same way for everybody.